It's 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. You're staring at a spreadsheet of contractor payments, 37 invoices, 12 different freelancers, and one question you can't answer. Are these people employees, contractors? The IRS says one thing. Your state says another. And if you get it wrong, the penalties could sink your business. This is Small Business Signals, and today we're breaking down the biggest change to worker classification in a decade, one that could save small businesses billions. In February 2026, the Department of Labor dropped a proposed rule that would fundamentally change how you classify your workers. They're calling it the Contractor Clarity Act. The current rules? 6 different factors to weigh. Lawyers making thousands to interpret them. Small businesses paralyzed by uncertainty. The new rule? 2 factors. Just 2. Control and profit opportunity. That's it. And according to the SBA Office of Advocacy, this simplification will save small businesses an estimated $329 million every single year. Let's back up. The question of who's an employee versus who's a contractor isn't some abstract legal puzzle. It affects every dollar you pay in taxes and every benefit you're required to provide. Employees require payroll taxes, Social Security contributions, Medicare, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation, benefits, the full package. Contractors, they invoice you. You pay them. They handle their own taxes, their own insurance, their own everything. Clean and simple if you classify them correctly. Get it wrong though. Classify someone as a contractor when they're really an employee, and you're looking at back taxes, penalties, and lawsuits that can destroy years of work. The Biden administration's 2024 rule tried to address this with a 6-factor economic reality test. But here's the problem. It often tilted toward treating contractors as employees. 6 factors to analyze every relationship. Integration into the business. Opportunity for profit or loss. Investment by both parties. Skill required. Permanence. Nature of control. The result? Small business owners spending thousands on legal consultations just to figure out if they could hire a freelance graphic designer. This uncertainty wasn't just expensive, it was paralyzing. How do you grow when every new contractor relationship feels like a legal minefield? On February 27, 2026, the Trump administration published a proposed rule that changes everything. It's in the Federal Register. The comment period closed April 28th. The new rule replaces those 6 factors with just 2. First, the nature and degree of control over the work. Second, the worker's opportunity for profit or loss. Control means this: do you dictate how the work gets done, or just what the final result should be? The more you control the process, the more likely you have an employee. Profit opportunity asks, can this worker make business decisions that affect their bottom line? Can they take on other clients? Set their own rates? Bear their own costs? According to the SBA Office of Advocacy, this simplification will save small businesses an estimated $2.31 billion over 10 years. That's $329 million annually. Those savings come from reduced compliance costs, fewer classification disputes, and less need for expensive legal interpretation of unclear rules. Now, here's where it gets complicated, because federal law is only part of the picture. States have their own rules, and some of them are significantly stricter. California has its ABC test. Workers are presumed employees, unless the business proves they're free from control, perform work outside the usual course of business, and run an independent operation. On May 5, 2026, New Jersey finalized new rules that presume workers are employees unless the company proves all 3 ABC test criteria, every single one. Massachusetts has similar rules. These state-level ABC tests often override federal guidelines, meaning a worker classified correctly under federal law might still be an employee under state law. So what does this patchwork actually mean for your business? Let me give you a real example. Say you run a marketing agency in Texas. You hire a freelance copywriter in California to handle some overflow work. Under the new federal rule, they're probably a contractor. They control their schedule. They set their rates. They have other clients. But California law applies to workers located in California, and under their ABC test, that same relationship might make them your employee, with all the obligations that come with it. California's AB 1514, effective January 1, 2026, did refine some exemptions for certain professionals, but the core ABC test structure remains in place. Here's what that means practically. You can't just follow the new federal rule and assume you're covered. You need to know where your workers are located. The SBA hosted an independent contractor rule roundtable on April 9, 2026, specifically to help small business owners understand these nuances. The comment period closed April 28th, but that doesn't mean the rule is final. According to Jackson Lewis, we're expecting the final rule to drop sometime in late summer or fall 2026. That window matters. You have time to prepare, time to audit your relationships, time to get this right before the new framework takes effect. So, what should you do right now? First, and this is critical, audit your current contractor relationships against both frameworks, the new federal two-factor test, and your state's requirements. You might want to create a simple spreadsheet for each contractor, list where they're located, how you control or don't control their work, and whether they bear their own business risks. If you operate in California, New Jersey, or Massachusetts, state law will likely be stricter than federal. Plan accordingly. Don't assume federal compliance equals state compliance. Document everything. How do your contractors control their own work? What equipment do they own? What other clients do they serve? This documentation is your defense if questions arise later. Review your contracts with freelancers. Make sure the language reflects genuine, independent business relationships, not just the title contractor slapped on what's really an employee arrangement. Consider budgeting for potential reclassification. If you have contractors in ABC test states and they don't clearly qualify for exemptions, you may need to convert some of those relationships to employment. The $329 million in annual savings sounds great, but it only materializes if you're actually following the rules. Non-compliance penalties haven't changed. There's real debate around these rules, by the way. Labor advocates argue contractor classification lets companies dodge responsibilities to workers, benefits, protections, stability. Business groups counter that many workers actively choose contractor status. They want the flexibility, the independence, the ability to set their own schedules and serve multiple clients. The truth? Both perspectives have merit, and your job as a small business owner isn't to resolve that debate. It's to navigate the rules as they exist. Here's the thing. Every business is different. Your specific situation will vary based on your industry, your state, and the nature of your contractor relationships. Run your specific numbers by an accountant before making moves. The Department of Labor's own guidance emphasizes that they're looking at economic dependence. Does the worker rely on you for their livelihood, or do they genuinely run their own business? That question, economic dependence, should guide your internal audit. Look at each contractor relationship honestly. If someone only works for you, uses your equipment, follows your procedures, that's a red flag worth addressing. Now, I know this might feel overwhelming. 6 factors to 2 factors sounds simple, but the state-federal patchwork adds layers of complexity back in. Consider connecting with a local small business development center. They often provide free or low-cost consultations on exactly these kinds of regulatory questions. Use those resources. That's what they're there for. And if this content is helping you navigate these changes, consider hitting subscribe. We cover signals like this every week, the regulatory shifts, the market trends, the operational insights that matter for small businesses. The final rule is expected late summer or fall 2026. That gives you several months to get your house in order. Don't wait until the last minute. One approach many businesses find helpful: create a contractor file for each freelancer relationship. Include their contract, samples of how they exercise control over their work, evidence of their other clients. Documentation of independent operation is your primary defense. If you ever face a classification audit, having records that show genuine contractor independence can make the difference between a clean bill and a massive liability. Let me put this in perspective. Before this proposed rule, small business owners spent an average of 47 hours per year just on worker classification compliance. That's more than a full work week every year. The DOL's proposed rule specifically aims to reduce that burden. Clear rules mean less interpretation required. Less interpretation means less time and money spent trying to understand what the rules actually mean. While you're waiting for the final rule, consider stress testing your contractor relationships against the two-factor test. Control and profit opportunity. If both clearly point to contractor status, you're probably in good shape. But remember, federal compliance isn't enough if your contractors work in stricter states. Always apply the more stringent test. That's how you stay safe on both levels. I should be clear about something important here. This content is for educational purposes. It's not financial or legal advice. Every situation is different, and you should always consult with qualified professionals before making significant decisions. What works for a 10-person landscaping company might be completely different from what works for a solo marketing consultant. The principles hold, but the execution depends on your specific circumstances. The data from the SBA's analysis suggests that businesses in the 5 to 50 employee range tend to see the largest proportional compliance savings from simplified rules. Enough contractor relationships to matter, small enough that legal fees really hurt. If that's your size, this rule change could meaningfully affect your operational costs. Not transformative overnight wealth, nothing worse like that, but genuine relief from a compliance burden that's been growing for years. And look, I know the regulatory environment can feel like it changes with every administration, one set of rules, then another. It's exhausting. But here's what stays constant. The businesses that thrive are the ones that stay informed and adapt, not frantically, not reactively, thoughtfully, proactively. That's the signal in all the noise. So, that's the Contractor Clarity Act story. Federal simplification from 6 factors to 2. Potential savings of $329 million annually for small businesses across America. But state laws in California, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and others still apply. Your homework: know where your contractors work and test each relationship against the strictest applicable standard. The final rule lands later this year. Use the time wisely. Get your documentation in order. Consult with professionals. And remember, clarity is coming, but preparation is always your responsibility. This is Small Business Signals. The rules are changing. The question is, will you be ready? Remember, this content is for informational purposes only and is not financial advice.